All right, so conflict resolution. So as we jump into conflict resolution, we'll give you a little, I don't know if I would call them gems because you'll have to decide whether they're valuable or not. So I'll just call them rocks, and then you can determine whether they're jewels or diamonds or just rocks. But probably when I think of conflicts, I think an important thing to understand is what it is. So we may use the word fight or conflict. To us, it's the same. But what it means is a difference. A difference that can sometimes become where it creates emotion sometimes, creates a fight or flight response. It's usually because your partner is different than you and you can't figure out what's wrong with them. Why aren't they like you? And so we want to give you, like with each session, we want to give you tools to work with. And I think a great tool to start with is that a lot of times when I'm working with couples, or if Steph and I are working with couples, there's a problem in that not everything's laid out on the table. And what I mean by that is say what you want, say what you need. You'd be surprised how often that doesn't happen, whether it's with finances or whether it's sex or whether it's quality time or maybe even some of those love languages. But it's so important for you to just verbalize what it is you're actually wanting. And so you all have the docs I sent, correct? So we're going to start with the marital needs questionnaire. So it has like affection, conversation, financial support, domestic support, like help around the house. We see a lot of couples where, either the husband or the wife is doing a lot of stuff around the house and the other person isn't doing as much in their eyes, but they never say anything. They just let it build and build and build. Most of the time, if you ask, hey, you know what, could you do this? It'd really help. They want to love you, but you've got to tell them. So we're going to pause for about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and take time and go through that questionnaire and lay it out on the table. Just choose a few of them. You can't go through all of them right now because there's too many of them. But go through the marital needs questionnaire and highlight the ones that really stick out to you. All right? Fire away. So here's what we've learned about conflict resolution. It is really hard. It's really hard because the tools we're giving you, I don't think will ever become natural. For a few rare people that are so disciplined or just as natural for them, these tools, they will take to heart and they will use. But for most of us, it's, oh, that's right. What if I'd done it that way after the damage has been done or after? But over time, you do begin to use these tools more often, or you have a hybrid of these tools. But when it comes to conflict, there are, most therapists, counselors will say there's two types of conflicts. There's the kind that you can come to an answer on. And then there's the ones that are going to last with you for the rest of your marriage. You're not going to be able to necessarily work through it. So the idea is not for you to be in agreement, but to know how to work through them, how to appreciate the other side of the coin. So we have a few that we kind of go to on, and I thought it'd be good for Steph to kind of highlight some of our number 2 conflicts, the ones that are, we pretty much assume these are going to be with us, but being in conflict is not bad. It's one of the reasons why you're attracted to your partner, because they're different than you. And those differences can sometimes rise to the surface and begin to irritate you or even hurt you or make you feel threatened. So.
Well, I mean, I guess we find that there's like a lot of things that we're just really different on. Even what we talked about last time, you realize like what your needs are very different from your partner's. But, for us, like, I'm always late. He hates being late. So that's just something that I don't know if we agree to disagree on, because it's a constant conflict. But we've definitely worked at it. And
So when you say we've worked at it, what do we mean exactly?
I mean, like a little less late. I don't know. But Vogue's gotten a little bit more like relaxed, but not too much. And I work a little bit harder. Sometimes he'll plan ahead and tell me a time that is a little earlier so that I'm a little bit more on time. So we've kind of compromised on that one. We don't really argue super much about it, but it's just something that it's just a character trait of mine that is kind of a bummer.
And that's the thing about it too. There's not a right or a wrong. It's so, for example, for me, I always want to be on time because for me it means being thoughtful to the people that we're with. If they don't care, then I don't care when we show up. But there's always that stress there. And then when it was really bad and we would get in fights about it, it was I thought she was doing it on purpose. I couldn't understand how she couldn't get it. And then I realized, oh, you just think differently. It seems kind of obvious, but there's so many things that you're going to think they understand because you understand it, but it's just different. I mean, the word different is just going to keep coming up over and over and over again. And learning to appreciate those differences is super important.
What you said too, like, there's certain things about each other that we battle about, but it's really important to know that there isn't like a win. Like we're kind of together, we're on the same team. So we kind of have to figure out how we're going to make some sacrifices to maybe come to an agreement. So like Boog telling me an earlier time so that or me making a decision to kind of like change and get ready a little bit earlier or really process how I'm going to time things out.
And a lot of times, especially if it's local, it's with friends, I say, okay, I'll meet you there. And so I'll go. And then she comes and the people we're with, they just know how it works. And she comes, later and I'm there and everything's good. And I don't have to deal with the stress of, come on, let's go. And then I start treating her poorly because she's not doing what I want her to do. So part of it too is just going, this is who she is. This is part of the package and it's beautiful. I wish it was more like me, but do I really? I don't know, because if she was more like me, probably wouldn't be that much fun.
The annoying ones that showed up early every time. And then finances is another one that we've kind of battled with since the beginning. We're totally different, even though I've changed a lot. But I'm a spender, he's a saver. And so we've kind of figured out kind of different ways to get through that. And but it's definitely a conflict that comes up often. And then the third one was when we had kids and like discipline and how we discipline them is super different. I think all three of those are hard ones to win or lose because they're part of who we are and we do it differently. And I think if we disciplined our kids exactly the same, it wouldn't be good because they need different types of models of discipline. And we definitely have certain things we don't bend on together, but we definitely are different. So.
Can you share about being a team and how that plays into all of this?
So yeah, part of the thing I was talking about is like we are on the same team, but we're both leaders. I think I've come a lot more into my leadership as the longer we've been married.
Which has really thrown me off my game.
It's definitely.
I'm like, you're really stubborn.
I think where
did this come from?
Almost like gonna die, that I realized I might have to like be in charge of the house, and so something happened and roles switched, but a little bit. But this happened before, and I think it might have been a precursor to now. But we took some dancing lessons to try to like learn how to dance, and I had a really hard time being led. And it's consistently been an issue in our marriage where I'm just like, no,
and this was early in our marriage.
Yeah.
Ooh, wouldn't that be great to take some salsa lessons or some ballroom dancing?
And
it was horrible.
It was awful. Like, you could not do it. And I think there was a lot backstory. Like, I always thought I was a terrible dancer. So then I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I can't do this. And then he'd try to do it a certain way and it felt wrong. And so then I'm like, I think that's wrong. I'm going to do it this way. But we just couldn't get in sync. And so, I can't say that we like won that one because we never really mastered the Roomba or whatever we were doing at the time. Salsa, I can remember. But over time, I've always like had in the back of my head, like, this isn't a winning thing because you guys are together. Like, there isn't a winning. It's just a figuring out how you're going to come to a conclusion or an agreement or figure out how to solve this problem, which might mean that not that I'm not right or wrong, but that I might have to do something different than I want to do it because it would be better for the team. So letting go of being the leader sometimes, or sometimes becoming the leader and asking him to kind of follow me a little bit in some of the decisions. So I think there's a lot of give and take with this, and really knowing it's not about winning or losing. It's about, like, how are we going to do this together? How are we going to navigate through this problem or this conflict? Because we both want to be heard, and we both want to make it work. So, I think in the beginning too of our marriage, I would just do whatever. I was like super submissive, and I would feel those feelings inside, but I would never like express them, and then it would just end in a lot of hurt and pain and explosions, and it just didn't work well. It was kind of like being on the dance floor.
And when it comes to conflict, each of you are going to deal with it differently. So we won't get into the psychology of it, or especially the physiology of it, but the way your brain is set up in some of these fights, it becomes fight or flight. Like, when you feel it really ramping up, it's touching something deep. So for example, when we deal with finances, I don't know why, but I know it's deep, is I want to make sure that they're taken care of. And so if I feel like we're spending more than is coming in, then we're pulling away from savings, and then our family won't be taken care of. But I'm not thinking that consciously. It's just ramping up. And for some people, like Steph shared, early in the marriage, she would just hide. She would just kind of crumble and bring it in. And so sometimes if your partner does that, you don't know what's happening. You're like, oh, I guess everything's great. If you're in a relationship where you never... So, you know how some couples say, we never fight. I get worried about those couples. If they never have conflict, that means somebody's not being honest. Because you're going to have differences. But is it a fight or is it a conflict? Fight, we'll say, is negative. And a conflict is, how do you work through this? Conflict resolution. Resolution doesn't mean it disappears. It's, how are you going to resolve this? How are you going to work through? How are you going to be the same team? So if you ever feel like you're trying to win a fight, you can't win. Nobody ever wins a fight. It's impossible because you're on the same team. And so I saw this visual that I thought was really helpful. So when you have a problem, let's say it's when you have kids, it's kids discipline, right? So a lot of times as a couple, it's going to feel like this is the problem, right? And it's going to feel like you're dealing with it this way. But this is why you get to trying to win, or you start getting emotional about it. But you need to look at the issue as out here, and you're the team looking at it, trying to problem solve and work through it. But if you attach it to yourself and you have to be right for your own survival, you're going to lose. I know Jesus didn't mean it in this context, but if you want to keep your life, you have to lose it. If you lose your life for his sake, you will gain your life. And in the same way in your marriage, if you put the problem out here, both of you, and look at it like, how can we work through this? It takes a lot of the emotion out. However, that's easy to say. It's hard to live it out. Guaranteed you guys have already had your moments, and you have plenty of moments to come. When it starts to ramp up super strong, you need about 20 minutes. That's kind of the general time, brain-wise, to reset. And it can be awkward to take that 20 minutes. So we've had times, and I've especially tried to do it recently, where things are getting ramped up. I can feel myself in fight or flight mode. Like if you see a dog running at you, You either got to fight it or you got to run. And I'm like, okay, this is not right. What am I doing? And so I need to pull myself out so I can kind of gain perspective, because it's like a tornado. It'll just keep spinning. It'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. So to stop it, pull away. You can say something like, hey, I need to take 20. I'm really messed up. Not you're messing me up. I'm really messed up. And then just take that time and pull away. Want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I think it's really important to take the problem out of the relationship, like put it outside and really look at it. And I mean, I just know this, especially for teaching or for anything, like there has to be some sort of like a persistence or a willingness to like come to not necessarily a solution, but a way to come to an agreement, or, I mean, I guess find a solution as a couple together. And it takes some confession for sure, and being able to say like, ow, that really hurt, or this is really bothering me. I guess we're heading into that, but being able to communicate what's making you upset. And I think a lot of young married couples have a really hard time with that, especially women. They're just like, it's okay, and it's not. So it's really important to make sure that you don't allow those problems or those pains or those frustrations to build a wedge. Because, I mean, we see it everywhere. Division is like the devil. So you can keep letting it divide you, and then it's not going to end well.
So we shared with you some of our conflicts. We're going to give you about 5 or 10 minutes. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to work on them. We're only giving you about 5 minutes, so you can't get into it. But what are some of them? What are some of the conflicts that you've experienced that are there? Maybe they're the ones that you think may be around for the long haul because they're just differences in approach, differences of background. And how many of them are just current problems that you can work through? And then in these problems, have you put them between you, or have you put them out so that you can both look at it as a team? So we'll only give you 5 minutes because we want to, after this, then give you a tool that works really well to work through these conflicts, kind of a process, a plan of attack. All right, take 5. So on the docs that we sent you, there should be one that says couples dialogue. And we got it from an approach that helped us a lot in our marriage called Imago Theory. So if you ever are looking for tools to help you in your marriage, the name of the book that we used was Getting the Love You Want. It's so good. Horrible name, great book. But in it, he has this process called couples dialogue. So you've heard of I messages and you messages. For example, you did this, you did that, versus I felt this. Well, he takes it to another level. And so in this couples dialogue, I want to kind of frame it for you. And then Steph and I are actually going to go through it to model it for you. Then you are going to have time. We'll pause again. And then you get to take one of those that you brought up and go through it. But using this tool. And this tool will also be your homework. So let's take a look at it, the couples dialogue, and we'll walk you through it. So there's 3 steps: mirroring, validating, and empathizing. So mirroring, this is probably the most awkward part, and it takes most of the time. And so, for example, if we were dealing with being on time, and I said to Steph, hey, that really bugs me that you're late all the time. Sound familiar when you say it? All the time, you're always, horrible words, but that's natural. And so then she would repeat back. So you're saying you get angry when I'm late. Well, yes, but I get angry because it doesn't seem like you care. So you're saying I don't care. You keep doing that until what she repeats back to me is accurate. I say, yes, that nails it. unfortunately, some of us are verbal processors. So you don't even know what you're upset about. And so you're taking if your spouse is a verbal processor, it's part of the process. It may come out one way and end up another. Hopefully it goes from the you messages to the I messages. Because the reality is I get frustrated when we're late because it makes me feel as if I'm letting somebody down. And when we're letting them down, I feel like it's not so much that it reflects poorly on us, because I usually don't care that much what people think, but I feel like we need to care for people. So if she were to repeat that back that way, then I would say yes. And then it moves on to the next one. So once you get past mirroring, which I said is the hardest part, and to do the mirroring part, you got to take out sarcasm, anger. You have to try to be as neutral as possible. It's like you're really trying to solve a puzzle. You know what I mean? And your head starts to hurt. That's what it's going to be like talking with your spouse, because you're trying to decode. You're trying to understand what they're saying. And then you get to validating, because anytime somebody feels something, that's a valid, you can't argue with that. So do you want to explain validation?
So when you're validating them, it's not like you're just saying, I agree with you, but you're taking what they say and basically saying, oh, it makes sense, or I can see how you would feel that way. Like I could see your desire to not let people down when I'm late, and I understand that. Or oh, that makes sense to me, that you're concerned about others, about yourself, or but you want to make sure you validate like right where their emotion or their hurt or whatever it is, and kind of point it out, so that it's almost like, oh, I hear your story, you know. So you're validating like their reasoning behind their frustration or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's going to feel robotic, but you want to get to that point where you're sincerely seeking to understand. And if you do that, it's beautiful the way God has designed us, where you start to then understand them. So going back to last session when we talked about communication, you're starting to understand more about them because you were curious, because you sought to understand first rather than being understood. And then you move towards empathizing. So once you can hear them, you don't have to create that feeling. You start to go, oh, that maybe makes you feel like disrespected, or that might make you feel as if you're not being heard, and so that might make you feel alone. It's hard to always put those into words. I have 2 male friends in particular that I know, they don't know what they're feeling. Like literally they have a problem. So if you scroll down, you see the feelings list. Some of you may look at this and think, what's the point of that? So one of my friends, he had to take that and put it up on the fridge. So it's literally on the fridge in their house. So now he doesn't have it anymore, but so that he could get in touch with what he was experiencing, because he didn't know. He wasn't used to being given permission to feel. And another friend of mine, he'll talk to his wife and they'll talk, and he says, she helps me to understand what I'm feeling, because I don't get it sometimes. I'm unaware of what's happening inside of me. And so as a team, she'll go, it sounds like you're feeling this way. He's like, oh my gosh, yes. If you're one of those people, you have this feelings list where you can kind of go through it. Or if you're listening to the other person, you can't seem to nail it, you can look here. Or they might point to the word and say, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling empty. So that's what that's for. So this is easy to talk about, but we wanted you to see it in action. So we are going to do it. And I asked Steph to come up with something that I don't know what it's going to be. So she's going to surprise me out of the blue. And I'm going to do my best to do this, to use this tool. It's going to sound awkward. I'm going to almost try to do it in a robotic way instead of making it sound all smooth and easy. Because if you've never done this, it's going to be awkward. So, all right. So here comes the surprise.
Conflict.
Yeah,
Okay,
here we go.
so this pretty much happens every year at this time of year.
Yeah, I'm over here.
When I go back to work. It's almost like all of a sudden
I know where we're going.
I just feel it's very hard because it's like I've been here all summer and then all of a sudden my job starts to kind of take over in August and I have responsibilities I have to take care of and I feel very like a burden. My job is like this burden or this frustration. I just don't feel encouraged to like start investing in the school year as much right now. It's like always really rocky and it's always really hard to explain.
So, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying I'm frustrated with your job.
I think it's frustrated with my time and maybe my job. It always seems like it has to do with work and where I'm at, why I'm there and why I'm working, why I'm not getting paid. Because I'm going to work, I should be getting paid. I don't understand, and it's just part of the job.
I don't like your job. Now, I'm doing something like that because it's so easy to get off track, isn't it? And all of a sudden you're ready to respond, but I need to be really curious. I also answered I didn't really think through my first response. So I said, you're saying I'm frustrated with your job. That's not what she was saying. So I need to keep saying it until when I say it, it resonates with her. And she should not give up until that point. Because then you're not really working on resolving the conflict. Because if I never hit a bullseye on what she's actually trying to say, then the conflict is still there. The hurt is still there. The frustration is still there. Okay.
So no, it's not so much that you're frustrated with my job. It almost feels like it feels like I'm not doing it the way you want me to. But it's actually my job description. I have to start doing these things. It's just part of a teacher's thing where you have to prepare, especially right now, because I'm clueless.
So if I'm hearing you right, tell me if I'm hearing you right. I think you're saying that as a first grade teacher, this is your passion. And it comes with a lot of things I don't agree with. But that doesn't matter because you're not feeling supported in this. Because we've agreed that this is a calling that God has put on you. He's gifted you. You've gone through the training. And these kids need you. And you feel that what you're going through training-wise is valuable. And you need support in that, rather than feeling like you're letting us down by leaving.
Yes, the second part for sure, the letting down by leaving. I feel that a lot. I think there would be nice to I would feel a lot more just encouraged if you were like, oh, it's teacher time. This is how it goes. Instead of battling it every year.
Okay, so tell me if this is it. And you said it really clear. I make you feel, by my words and my actions, that you're letting us down when you're going to work. Which is... So you feel that. And you would like me to just jump on board like a team and say, okay, hey, it's time when we set you free to go, use these hours for teaching and not tell you how I think you should do it.
Yes. Good job.
Okay. It usually takes longer than that. But we haven't. Now this is a new one for us, by the way.
This is a new one.
She's never brought it up like that before. But because we've had practice, and we don't do this tool all the time. I don't want to make it sound like, we always pull out we got to memorize. But it's a valuable tool. So the next step would be validating, which is pretty easy, especially if you're listening from the outside. So what we have done before with groups is we would do it in a group setting like this, and each couple would do it in front of every other couple.
In the middle.
We call it the fishbowl. So you go into the middle, and then everyone else would give us input on how we treated each other, how we talked, and...
Well, they could do that now. Oh, no.
No, we're not.
Okay, sorry.
But,
Yes.
but hearing that, it's pretty easy to validate that, because that makes perfect sense. Because if I were going to work, I wouldn't want to feel like I was always letting you down by going to work. I can't really stay home. And not only did we agree on me, and what I do vocationally, but we definitely agreed on what you're doing. And for me to then kind of like pull back, it's got to be frustrating. And then you feel guilty. So I've already moved towards empathizing. So if I was in that position, I would hate to feel guilty about something I shouldn't feel guilty about. And it would be a bummer to not... the word that just keeps coming to mind is support.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I get it. It's hard because it's every year. So
It is pretty much every year.
Yeah.
Several times a year.
So.
But it's good for me to hear it that way, because the next time I do it, then I can maybe go, okay, never mind. It's teaching time. Or she could even say, hey, it's teaching time. So because we had this conversation, it's almost like a little placeholder that I could remember. And then you go and make out after this. That's how it usually works. So now you choose one of those and do your best to follow those guidelines. It should be clunky and awkward, especially if you've never done this before. That's okay. That's why your homework is going to be doing this for 48 hours with almost everything. And that's going to be really clunky, but it's just to get in the habit and learn the nuances of it. So for now, we'll take 10 minutes. Let's make it 15 minutes, because that way you could do one on either side. And if you don't get to both of them right now, that's okay. But we'll give you 15 minutes. If you're at home, you need 20 minutes, and take as much time as you need, and then come back and we'll tell you what your homework is specifically. All right? Okay, so here's your homework. Your spouse comes back. They have the groceries, car's full of groceries. Hey, can you help out? So what I'm hearing you say is you just want me to help out? And you're gonna feel like, oh, we're having fun with everything. For 48 hours, make it like almost a joke, because you're gonna practice through this. Hey, your socks are on the ground. So what I'm hearing you say is that you think I'm a slob because my stuff's on the ground. And of course, that's not what you said. But just any excuse you can do for the next 48 hours, do it. Because this is something that you want to practice, that you want to put into a habit. And the only way that's going to happen is by not waiting for a conflict. Just using it in everyday life. 24 hours is probably enough. But 48 hours will give you a lot more practice with it. Happy homework. And we'll see you guys next